Hey everyone, welcome back to Off the Record with k.jachimowicz. Today we're gearing up for a major fight weekend. We got two huge events. UFC 309 with the headline main card event of Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic, as well as the Netflix bout of Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul. And UFC 309 also being at Madison Square Garden. And, these are some legendary fights, potentially. I know the main event of 309, some people might feel a little funky about because the UFC obviously wanted to bend over backwards for Jon Jones to some degree so he could maybe get his, GOAT fairy tale ending. But with that said, he's still one of the most dangerous fighters of all time. And, he really enters the octagon with, the intention to really, not just defeat the opponents, but, damage them or, maim them. And I don't think that Miocic is going to come with that same level of intensity necessarily. I haven't paid attention to him anywhere near as much as I've paid attention to Jon Jones over the years. I know they fought a few years ago, but also, Stipe Miocic is 42 years old and hasn't fought in 3 years. So I think that's something big to, take into mind, that he's kind of just maybe trying to snag that last big payday on a headline pay-per-view event against such a major name. And he was knocked out by Francis Ngannou in his last fight, which lost him the title. So I don't think Jon Jones is going to have much of a problem beating Stipe. He's currently minus 625. So there's not even any point in betting on him. And I personally, my prediction for that main event at UFC 309 is that Jon Jones is going to win by knockout. Hard to say what round. Judging by what I think was his last fight against Cyril Gane, however you say his name, Jon Jones had him, I think it was a submission win, but he had him done with in 2 minutes in the first round. And so that's all just some stuff to think about with that main event of UFC 309. And I'm also going to break everything down, from fight analysis to betting odds to my predictions, as well as inside tips on picking the best seats if you're planning on heading to this UFC event yourself or any UFC event, because it is a little tricky and you would definitely want to be careful and very educated on what seats you're purchasing, because they're expensive as fuck and you don't want to get the experience that you're not looking for, because the experience varies quite drastically depending on what zone of seating you're in and what row, to be honest. So let's dive in. So I'm going to segue for a second and talk about the Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul event taking place on Netflix, which is free for all subscribers, surprisingly. I'm curious about this one. I'm real curious to see if Mike Tyson is going to get embarrassed by Jake Paul's YouTube ass. My personal prediction is that Mike Tyson's going to knock him out quickly. But that prediction is based off of, just the history of Mike Tyson and his power. And I don't know. I believe he still has some of that power even at his age, but the stamina is where an issue could definitely come into play, I believe. If Jake Paul is able to just drag that fight out and waste his time and energy, he could get the decision, but I don't see how the hell Jake Paul could knock out Mike Tyson. If that happens, I would be floored. And I don't even want to think about that. It's too insane. And Tyson, man, what can you say about Tyson? He's rock solid, former heavyweight champ, known for incredible speed and knockout power back in the day. I've those videos I've seen of Mike Tyson are so unbelievable from the late 80s or 90s, whenever it was. Like, he was knocking dudes out like he had a freaking rocket launcher in his arm, like 10 seconds into the first round. Like, he's a dangerous dude, man. Like, don't underestimate this man's power just because of his age, for real. He's been doing his training. He was posting those videos a little while back. I mean, he got that little illness or health issue or whatever that had to delay the fight, but I don't know, man. I'm leaning on him for sure. And I definitely think he can handle Jake Paul, despite the youth of Jake Paul and despite him leaning into his, boxing career at a younger age or whatever. I don't think he's a Mike Tyson at all. Like, love him or hate him, he's committed. He's younger with a solid build. He's proven he can take a punch and keep going, but I mean, I don't know. Like, is he just out there for a paycheck? Like, is he for real about this boxing shit? Like, I'm still, like, on the fence about that. Like, even though he's about to fight Mike Tyson, I'm just, like, it just feels like it's just, like, some social media bullshit to me, like, sometimes. But we'll see what he's got. I don't want to talk down about him and hate on him. I'm not trying to do that. Like, if he could rise to the occasion and beat Mike Tyson, I will be astonished and impressed. So my take overall, if Tyson lands one of those legendary thunderous hooks early in the fight, it's game over for Jake Paul. Knocked out on the floor, taking a nap. Tyson hits harder than like practically anyone ever, and age does not erase that power. But if Jake Paul can keep moving, wear Tyson out, he definitely stands a chance of taking it to a decision. My gut absolutely tells me Tyson takes this, though. I think that his experience will shine through, but not to count Jake out entirely, and that if he keeps his distance a lot and drags it way out, he's got some type of shot. So betting for that one, like right now, odds are tight. Tyson's experience and reputation make him a favorite among the old school fans, of course, but probably some younger people are leaning towards Jake because of his endurance and age advantage, and maybe just like the hype aspect of the youth wanting to see something unbelievable or unexpected happen. Like, if you're betting on Tyson, I'd go for that knockout win and maybe even something on an early round for that outcome, because Tyson's best chance to win is to end it quickly and powerfully. And if you're betting on Jake, I'd consider a points win because I don't see him getting a knockout at all. I would be absolutely shook if Jake Paul knocked out Mike Tyson. But it is totally possible he could survive the rounds and win on points. And yeah, just remember, this one's more of a spectacle fight than like anything. So now back to UFC 309. The big one, the UFC 309 headliner at Madison Square Garden. Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic. This fight legit has legendary written all over it. You got Jon Jones, widely considered to be one of the best to ever do it, versus Stipe Miocic, who's got the most heavyweight title defenses in UFC history. Both these guys are monsters. Let's start with Jones. His record is insane. He's dominated the light heavyweight division, moved up to heavyweight, and keeps winning. He's got the reach, technique, wrestling, and the mental game. He gets into his opponent's heads over the years, and that's part of what makes him so deadly. He knows how to control a fight from every angle. And then there's Stipe. Stipe is the kind of guy you can't count out. He's got great cardio for a heavyweight, and he does have the knockout power. He's very well-rounded. He's beat guys like Daniel Cormier and Francis Ngannou at their peak. This is not a guy who backs down, and he's going to bring his A game. And with that said, like I said before, like there's a major favoring of Jones winning this fight. There's little value betting on the money line. And there's definitely more value with betting him to win by knockout, as when Miocic's 3 out of his 4 career losses have come by the way of knockout. Knowing Jon Jones, he most likely will get that knockout. So who's got the edge? Jones, because of his reach and versatility, he'll keep Stipe at bay. But if Jones doesn't finish it early, Stipe's stamina could give him a shot in the later rounds. Personally, I'm totally leaning toward Jones on this one for the knockout, potentially like second round. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little skeptical of it all. Stipe's resilience and experience in heavyweight wars do make him a dangerous opponent, despite everything else said. Now on to the bets. Jones obviously the favorite by a lot. You can see why. But if you're looking for a value, betting on Stipe as an underdog to win by decision could be a move. Jones, though, is solid for a straight win if you want something safer. Another good option to be bet on at going the distance. Both these guys are durable, and this fight could go all 5 rounds. I don't expect that personally, but it is possible. So some of these other fights, too, on this main card we should talk about. Like Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler. Conor McGregor trolled Michael Chandler for years, and none of this ever came to fruition. And like Conor McGregor just wasted this guy's time. And this costed Michael Chandler a lot of opportunity, I feel like, because he kind of turned down this other stuff to chase like the big, major event. And so now we're here with this rematch of an instant classic that ended with a second-round knockout by Charles Oliveira. Michael Chandler's explosive. He's a good wrestler, but Charles Oliveira brings an extremely dangerous ground game and the Brazilian jiu-jitsu with improving striking. I don't think this second fight will be as close, and I think Oliveira will get the win here as he's still in his prime, and I believe if he had like 30 to 60 seconds in that fight against Arman Sarukan, or however you say that, in UFC 300, I believe he would have gotten the finish, but he ultimately lost by split decision in a very competitive fight. My prediction, I think Charles Oliveira will win by submission in this Michael Chandler-Oliveira rematch. We also got women's flyweight, Viviane Araújo versus Karine Silva. Silva's shown herself to be a decent prospect. She's won all 4 of her fights in the UFC so far and has good submission skills. Araújo's a decent underdog, decent striking skills. She's never been finished, but may have kind of hit a ceiling in her forward path. I'm going with Silva, and I think she'll get it done by decision, as Araújo's never been finished. The next one I want to talk about is Bo Nickel versus Paul Craig. This is supposed to be a pretty good matchup. Like on one side, Bo Nickel is a very hyped up prospect in MMA. He's expected to become a champion at some point. Every time he fights, the betting odds are kind of in his favor typically. Bo Nickel's heavily favored to take this victory, and he's a very good wrestler, 3-time Division I national champ. He's got great southpaw at his length. His jiu-jitsu and stand-up are far more developed than most for a wrestler who came into the UFC, and like maybe Craig could test Nickel a little bit as far as like composure, but between wrestling and hands and overall stamina and athleticism, like Bo Nickel's gonna take this one safely. And I don't think Craig's gonna take that one. I think it'll be a decent fight, but I think Craig's chance of winning is like a miracle. So the final fight on that main card, I believe, is a lightweight bout of Mauricio Ruffy versus James Lontop. And Ruffy is from the Fighting Nerds. His style is like kind of a young Conor, and he had a quick knockout in UFC 301. I think he'll be able to knock out Lontop. He's winless in his 2 UFC fights, and I don't think it's going to be much to see there. So, okay, switching back. Choosing seats for a UFC event. Like, let's switch gears for a second. For anyone planning to go to UFC events, especially the major ones like this at Madison Square Garden or TD Garden, like especially for us East Coast people where these events aren't really coming around a lot because a lot of these are in Vegas and et cetera or out of the country. So So let's talk about the seat selection. If you're like me, you don't want to bother with the nosebleeds. Like my philosophy with, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to just be in the arena and you're cool with just watching the screen, like, you know, the whole night and just drinking with your buddies, like go for it and save a bunch of money because these events are expensive as fuck. But if you're like me and you don't want to be way in the back of the nosebleeds feeling like disjointed from the immersion of the event, UFC fights are all about being close to the action or having a very nice view of the action. And the atmosphere completely changes dependent on where you are located in these buildings. My go-to advice: look for seats in the lower bowl if you can swing it financially, but keep row in mind. Naturally, your thought would be to get, the closest row possible, which can work and can be fine. But you need to keep in mind that the structure of the octagon. So I'll give you the whole rundown. So for floor seats, you need to remember that if you're not in one of the first couple rows on the floor, you are going to be looking at the backs of a lot of heads and a lot of people, which can be obstructive, but being on the floor is also cool. You're also around a lot of cool people, potentially celebrities, presidents, anything. Fighters, you can get autographs maybe, meet people, take pictures. There's that cool aspect. As well as for Madison Square Garden specifically, the seating map is like around the octagon, it's like 1F, 2F, 3F, 4F, and those are like the true floor seats that are flat ground. And then right behind those is like section 1, 2, 7, 8, 9, or whatever. And those 1, 2, 7, 8, 9 type sections, those ones actually have a very slight slope. So if you get one of the rows in those sections, like section 1, like row 5, like you will actually have a slightly elevated view compared to all of these people that are just on the ground staring directly at the back of someone's head, which can be very obstructive. And you also want to keep in mind there's the cameramen circling the ring, as well as the chain of the octagon fence. So going up to the lower bowl now. With the lower bowl seats, you obviously want to keep in mind the chain of the fence. I went and saw, I can't even remember what number it was now, but I saw Sean O'Malley fight Aljamain Sterling, I think that's how you say his name, at TD Garden. And I had one of the lower bowl seats, like 6th row, like right above like where the fighter walkouts were, and it was a phenomenal seat despite having to see through the cage a bit. It didn't bother me at all. I thought it was awesome. And overall, I think no matter where you'll sit, if you're a true fan, like you're going to have a blast. But you definitely, when you go into this, you don't want to just look at it and get hyped up and just like buy any ticket you see. Like it's actually like very like the atmosphere and experience and environment varies very dramatically. So you definitely want to keep that in mind, like heavily when purchasing a UFC ticket for sure. And yeah, like if floor seats are out of reach, which they definitely can be, because some of these top end floor seats are like over $10,000. The thing is though, you can kind of sneak around and find like single seats for like $1,000 or something, like in like really good spots, but you got to like really like watch like a hawk. And I mean, maybe if you go, like, I'm talking about this like 1 week out or less than a week out, just like days out. I mean, if you're in like day one when the tickets go on sale, maybe you get a way better deal. But even when I bought my tickets for the Sean O'Malley fight at TD Garden, like right when they went on sale, basically, and it's still, they get you no matter what. These companies know what they're doing. Ticketmaster, StubHub, they all know how to get you, and they're all working in conjunction. So I think that's going to pretty much wrap up today's fight breakdown. We've got an epic lineup this weekend. Tyson versus Jake Paul and UFC 309's headliner with Jones and Miocic, as well as that rematch of Oliveira and Chandler, which I think will be really good. Like I was just watching episode 2 of the UFC embedded vlog for UFC 309, and the quote at the very end of the vlog was Chandler being like, "I promise you guys, if you go to this fight, you will never regret spending that money." Like he was like, he was like, you're going to thank God that you showed up at this event. And I mean, I know that they're just marketing, but I don't know. I kind of think they're going to bring a show. I hope they bring a show. And I'm thinking about going myself. I've been eyeing these tickets. I was actually almost pulled the trigger on it last night, but I'm trying to be smart and not get got, and I'm trying to really think out the experience I want rather than just toss money at the wall and make these guys filthy richer. But so these are definitely fights you guys don't want to miss. I'm tuning into both, and I'll be back with a recap episode to talk about what goes down, most likely. If you're betting, be smart. If you're going to be in the seats, no matter what seat you get, enjoy the hell out of that shit. This is a legendary weekend in fight sports, and I can't wait to see how it all unfolds. Hit me up on social media. Let me know who you're betting on or predicting on. And as always, thanks for tuning in to Off the Record with k.jachimowicz. Follow my podcast on Apple, Spotify. Follow my Instagram at k.jachimowicz. And until next time, stay hype. Let's go.